Hello, my name is Drew Weiser, and I am a senior at Sam Houston State University as an integrated studies major, minoring in theater, psychology, and sociology. This year has been amazing to say the least, and for my capstone class that I'm currently in, this is now my third and final assignment, and I am so grateful and appreciative that you are allowing me to do this as a video. I just felt like that my passion and my beliefs would come across a little bit more clear through a video. And it's also very telling that it is virtually, it's kind of been a theme throughout this whole process. So thank you for this. So just a little recap. My first assignment was really just informing you about my journey and how I am not your typical or traditional integrated studies major student. Grabbing onto psychology and sociology along this path has been very eye-opening and very educational and extremely enlightening to piggyback on side of my passion, which is theater. My second assignment, I really bridged the two, psychology and theater, together and shined a little bit of light on how the two have very extreme similarities and how they work symbiotically together, especially shining light on the importance of mental health and how theater can aid in that. And then for this third assignment, I'm going to be answering the question, now what? What do I plan to do with this? And really bridge the three together and how that's going to really benefit my future and help alongside my career. So the now what answer is I plan to become in the very near future a secondary education theater teacher. I'm extremely passionate about it, very excited about it, and really truly believe that psychology and sociology have answered a lot of questions and equipped me for more than I could have even imagined along this journey. And so my plan right now is to go alongside you and explain to you the main classes I took away from my education in theater, psychology, and sociology. And my goal is to bridge the three together and see how they really all work together alongside each other, as well as aid in my goal to become a teacher and how I'm going to use what I learned inside my classroom as a theater teacher. As I mentioned before, after high school, I took on the role of a theater major entering into college. I thought this was my passion. I knew this was my passion, and I thought this is exactly what I'm going to do with my life. And as I became older, I realized, what am I going to do with a theater degree? Yes, I can become a theater teacher, but I really feel like I wanted to take it a step further and enrichen that theater aspect. And so that's whenever I grabbed psychology and sociology and really started viewing my passion underneath the microscope and from a different scope. And so I would love to shine some light on that for you and how that came about. So now informing you that theater is my passion, I'm going to take you on a journey with me. So theater, let me give you a little bit of insight on the main theater classes that I gained from. Now, most, if not all of my classes for theater were taken under the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville, and had an amazing time. And so these are a few of my classes, just going to take a few that really sum up my theater experience and what the most I've taken away from it and have the biggest relationship to psych and sociology. So first of all, acting 1 and acting 2, I was lucky enough to have beginner, intermediate, and advanced and take them multiple times and really just gained experience on stage as well as the basic terminology, working with partners, learning about the relationship between each other on stage as well as the audience and as an actor. Also gained a lot of experience being coached as well as directed and a lot of learning experience there. Another thing that came in was improvisation and Something that was wonderful about that is I'm able to take that and adapt it into the real life setting of problem solving. Not only in improv are you able to come upon a solution to a problem, but you're able to accept the fact that you can come upon that solution throughout a journey and throughout a process. So that was really, really fun to do. And actually, in hearing myself say that, it was fun problem solving. That's just kind of a phenomenon and almost like gaining catharsis about being on stage and tackling a life issue without really realizing it. We'll get more into that later. So another class would be musical theater, a lot like acting 1 and acting 2, but musical theater really takes a specific moment in a musical and really pinpoints that moment and who that character is, the character background, what are they fighting for, what's their motivation, the who, what, where, why, when, all of that into that one little moment. And it's really fascinating and really neat to do because you kind of dabble into the world of the psychiatric triad, which is why someone thinks they do, why do they feel they do, and why do they behave the way they do. And you really start to get to know your character as well as get to know yourself. And so, as we know, that is what the study of psychology is how one thinks, behaves, and feels the way they do. And that's exactly what becomes from an authentic portrayal of a character and someone who you can relate to on stage and really enriches that character development of the work that is to become on stage. So the musical theater experience in that class was wonderful. We just took a musical theater number and performed it and dissected all throughout the moments of that number. We are wondering why my character does that. Why, just making sense of why. And so this class was one of the main theater classes that I kept going back to in all my psychology and sociology classes. Whenever I would think of it, how would this relate to a theater moment? This is the class I would always resort back to because it was always figuring out the why, the thoughts, the behaviors, and the feelings, all of which related back to psychology and theater. So that was that class. Another class would be stage management. And this really goes behind and beyond just the performance and really goes how this performance was birthed, for lack of a better term. All the work behind the scenes and all the stuff that goes into the production side of it, not just the actual visual side of it, with the costumes and the lights and the scenery, set work, all of that, not just that, all of that plus the work that goes into it with the playwrights, the production team, the producers, and as well as ticket sales and marketing, and really shine light on the organizational, administrative side of the production and really shine some light on the fact of all the work that's going to be done whenever I produce a show in the classroom. So another and final class I'm going to touch base with on is a class called Viewpoints, which was established by Anne Bogart. And again, all these classes were taken at the University of Arkansas under amazing professors whom I admire so greatly and deeply, as well as my Sam Houston psych and sociology teachers. This was a class that really focused on the physicality of acting, which I was really drawn to, being a choreographer and a dancer. And it basically talks about your objective, what you're fighting for in relation to the space you're in, the story that's being told, the time it's happening, the emotion that is being given, and the movement around and the shapes around you. So it just takes in all of the surrounding and how that relates to you and how you think, feel, and behave. Catching on to the theme? It also was very apparent in the importance of nonverbal communication and how nonverbal communication is extremely powerful on stage as well as in a classroom. Now, moving on from theater to psychology. I couldn't not be theatrical in this delivery. So with psychology, The first one is not extremely obvious in its connection, and I chose this one because it shined a lot of light, and I keep saying that, but I really can't emphasize how much light has been shown on my understanding for these topics. So the first class I want to talk about in psychology is human sexuality. What does that have to do with theater? In short, in 2021, we have a lot of playwrights who are addressing topics of the unspeakable, and we don't talk about that, and we don't address that, and that's too touchy, that's controversial. Well, playwrights are going there as much as anyone is going there. And so this class really educated me on some topics that are being addressed in today's world. That's how this class applies to me in my teaching and in my theater. Now, in the classroom, how does this apply to, I don't plan on teaching a health class. I don't plan on teaching human sexuality. But as a teacher, I feel like I need to be equipped and prepared to receive topics that my students may be handling and addressing. I don't want to just be a teacher to these kids. I want to be someone who can be trusted, an ally, someone that they feel safe with. And so in educating myself in these topics, I feel like I am not going to be intimidated by today's youth and their challenges. The topics that this class covers are very uncomfortable, but they are very real and very necessary to talk about. It talks about sex versus gender, as well as just the anatomic sex of male and female. There's very controversial understanding of sexual orientation versus gender identity. And that is something that today's youth is very wrapped up in and handling, addressing. It is very, very real. And though I don't need to be their counselor, I do need to be equipped and be able to not be shocked when they come to me with these controversial concepts, but be able to be educated in order to know where they're coming from and not just be focused on the shock that they're coming to me about this. I would much rather be a safe place where they can talk to. And then as well, as I mentioned before, these are topics that are very up and coming in playwrights. And so in order to understand these topics and inform the students about these topics, this class has equipped me and helped me get more comfortable and educate me on those topics as well. Moving on to social psychology, which is the scientific study of the way in which people's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are influenced by the real or imagined presence of other people. This kind of bridges the gap between sociology and psychology. And it just talks about how social situations affect us. What shapes our behavior, our social intuitions, how to know ourselves better, implications for human health, importance for judicial procedures, and influencing behaviors. All of this is applicable to ourselves as well as to our characters, on-stage social situations between partners or with the audience, verbal and nonverbal behaviors and communications. It is all connected. Do you see? Now, with the social psychology, we jump to the personality psychology, and this class was largely informative and a huge tool to put in our toolbox when developing a rich and developed character with a very interesting background. So this is the basis of this class. We would have the cover of the psychological triad, which is, say it with me, how people think, how people feel, and how people behave. It goes into a little bit of an overlap of clinical psychology, where we would dive into what is normal and what is normal, and that versus the extreme patterns of psychology, personalities. Then it goes into the personality disorders. It looks at the whole person and how all areas of psychology come together. It really embraces individual differences, which I believe theater does as well, and I plan to do as a teacher as well. Theater tends to be a safe place for people who don't feel like they belong elsewhere. When they come to theater, they feel like they can truly be themselves because individuals who are different are celebrated in theater. And I feel like it's exactly what this class did. It shined light on many personalities and educated people of people who are different than you or I, me or you. So it's very interesting and fascinating to really just how we acknowledge our character's personality on stage, or why they are the way they are, or how they are different from ourselves, and really educating myself on these personality differences really shined light on characters who were different than myself. I had an amazing opportunity to be a character who was very different from myself in a recent play that I was a part of, and I was extremely intimidated by the fact that they were so different from me. And I was having a struggle of, how do I relate to this person? How do I portray this person as authentic? Because I am nothing like them on the outside or inside. And it was with the material I gathered from this course that gave me a better understanding of that different personality type. Something that is also really fun to do is look at the big 5 personality traits, which are openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. So just a little fun bit is you can pull people whom the students or the kids might know that have these strong personalities and put this label on them, this personality trait that they may score high on, to gain a better understanding of why they are the way they are. So, for instance, openness, Anna from Frozen could be one that could exhibit strong levels of openness. If we think of conscientiousness, we think about the sitcom Friends. Monica Geller is high in that. Extroversion, Ferris Bueller. Then we go to agreeableness, which is Forrest Gump. And then moving on to neuroticism would be none other than our favorite Loki. So it's really fun to kind of get a visual of these understandings and kind of help us portray this character with deeper, richer intent. So that, my friends, is my psychology experience. Moving on this crazy train ride of sociology. You're lucky all I did was hats for these costume changes. Now, sociology, I'm not going to cover a whole lot on because it really has a whole lot of the same information that psychology does. It's just basically including a group as opposed to an individual. So piggyback all of that psychology that I just dumped on you and add this a little bit to it. The 3 classes I'm going to touch briefly on were, the first one was social inequality. This basically shines a lot of light on the minorities in the world. If we look at race, if we look at class, if we look at gender struggles, these were all included in this class. Then, speaking about gender struggles, I then was blessed to take the course of Gender and Inequality. Now, 2021, what a better year and to take this course with all the current issues going on in the world. It talked about work and its rewards. Then it moved on to families. And then it moved on to gender and violence. And finally, number 4, the control of sexualities. This shined a lot of light on the things that we really just kind of set aside and don't really acknowledge when it clearly is happening and it is affecting us without us even knowing. I feel like this is of very big importance to be aware of and to educate ourselves on. Even if it's not something that we see on a daily data basis, doesn't mean it's not happening in our world. The final class I want to touch base in sociology was marriages and families. Now, as I mentioned before in my other assignments, this was a wonderful class for me to take. I was extremely excited about taking this class because I am a wife to my amazing husband of 15 years, and we have 4 incredible young boys. So I was really excited to dive into the content of this and see how applicable this was and really get a good understanding of what this course had to offer. And these are the few things that this class dived into. It really covered the emphasis on diversity of the American family and what a family looks like. It doesn't just look like this, or it doesn't just look like that. And it doesn't have to look just like this in order to achieve this or that. There was research on the impact a family has on an individual. And then it also went into the influence of social media on families, which is extremely important. And if you look in my references, this book actually was not written and is extremely current as it could have been. And so, as we know, our world is ever changing, and I can only imagine what the latest edition is going to cover in this course. It looked in these subjects on these different levels: the social conflict, structural functionalism, and symbolic interactionism in the macro and micro view. All of these courses looked at how an individual thinks, feels, and behaves in reference to a social group. But all of these, mainly in my experience as a teacher, gave me a better understanding of a home life and what a home life influence has on an individual. Now, since I covered my 3 minors, I wanted to briefly talk to you about the heavyweight drama therapy has. Now, I don't feel like I am going to graduate from Sam Houston in a couple of weeks and then open my doors with a big plaque on my wall saying that I am a licensed drama therapist. Even though I am extremely passionate in it and extremely supportive in it, does not equip me to become that licensed therapist. But I do want you to realize the importance of it and the connection that psychology, sociology, and theater have, and kind of what those 3 have birthed, which is drama therapy, for just one of the things. So let me just inform you just a little bit of what drama therapy is. The idea to express feelings in a session, to interact with others, and to rehearse healthy behaviors. The goals of symptom relief, emotional and physical integration, as well as personal growth. The main thing about drama therapy is that it can provide content for participants to tell their stories in a safe setting and to set goals and solve problems. It also enables these participants to express their feelings in a way that they may not feel safe doing otherwise, or may not even be able to tap into or even be aware of in a natural setting. The last thing is that you are able to possibly achieve catharsis, and it's just a positive space. So the final thing I want to leave you with, as I put on my final hat, I want to leave you with my goals as a teacher and what I hope for my students. I hope my students are able to express their feelings authentically. I hope my students to enrich in their storytelling skills, to talk through an issue, an obstacle, then solve it or embrace it. I hope my students gain a sense of self-awareness and body awareness. My goal for my students is for them to increase openness, creativity, and spontaneity. I hope my students build trust, not only between the teacher and the student, and not only between their partners on stage, but within themselves, trusting themselves. I hope my students build relationships and bonds, not only in the classroom, not only on the stage, but outside in the real world. I hope my students develop social skills that will lead them into their adult life. I hope my students gain a sense to alter their mindset and to think outside the box. My goal is for my students to become goal achievers, to learn those lines, to tackle that performance with confidence. And that is my number one goal, for my students to gain self-esteem and self-confidence, that they can do anything. Can the power of theater do that? As I've learned, the power of the mind and the power of psychology is powerful than we all know. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I am so excited to leave Sam Houston State University as an integrated studies major, theater, psychology, and sociology. Go Bearcats!